Welcome into the FCS Edge, where this time of the year our buzzwords are upsets, chaos, and bubble. I'm Craig Haley of Stats Perform and theanalyst.com, along with co-host Zach McKinnell of FCS Football Central on SI. Zach, what is happening?
Man, I'm excited, Craig. It's a big week, right? Like I think after we record, the top 10 drops from the playoff committee. We don't have a ton of ranked matchups, Craig. But I was talking earlier this week. We always have this chaos week in the FCS, and it's usually the weeks we don't have a ton of ranked matchups. So maybe it's this weekend we get some chaos that could shake up the top 25.
Hopefully. Well, Graham Bell is our producer, and this episode we're gonna get a jump on North Dakota State versus South Dakota State on their October 25th matchup. We're gonna talk Week 8 picks, and we have a special guest, Jackson State head coach T.C. Taylor. His team coming off that big win over Alabama State. Great week to have Coach Taylor in. But let's get right to it. The Stats Perform FCS Top 25 poll. I tell you, the top is looking awful strong because you know what? The top 12 teams, Zach, they only have 4 combined FCS losses, and it's all within each other. You have Montana State, number 5. They lost to South Dakota State. North Dakota obviously lost at Montana. Illinois lost to North Dakota State. So did Southern Illinois. So those are the only FCS losses within the top 12. It's amazing. You must really like that top group of teams.
Yeah, I'm actually really impressed with them. I think the one that maybe like kind of stands out to me is a little bit Illinois State. I know they played North Dakota State well. I think they came in at number 10. I still want to see more from them because they kind of reverted right back to what I thought about them before the NDSU game, Craig, where they really weren't putting away teams they should be blowing out, right? Like Murray State putting up, I believe it was 32 points this weekend concerns me just a little bit. And maybe it's a situation where they're playing up or down the competition and their opponent depends on what type of team we see. And the reason it worries me a little bit, Craig, we saw Idaho take a big loss this week in Northern Colorado, and that was kind of the same type of criticism we had with them. They weren't blowing out St. Thomas. They weren't blowing out Utah Tech, and it eventually caught up to them with the loss to Northern Colorado this weekend. So that's a team in the top 12 I'm looking at very closely. But you talk about the MVFC, how strong it is. Craig, all these teams have to play each other at some point for the most part. There's going to be some carnage here in the top 12, and I'm very interested to see how the voters value strength of schedule, close losses versus quality wins, because we're going to have some teams in this top 12, Craig, that are going to make a run to 10, 11 wins, but might not have as many ranked wins or the strength of schedule as some of these other Valley or Big Sky teams in the top 12.
Zach, you read my mind because on theanalyst.com this week, my preview, I'm calling it Show Me Week. And of course, one of those teams is Illinois State because it just, other than their North Dakota State game, not quite sure if they're, living up to all those expectations. They are number 10, obviously. So they have a lot of talent, but we'll see. But you mentioned the Missouri Valley Football Conference. North Dakota State, I mean, they're just on a roll. 45-17, they beat Southern Illinois last week. It was their third straight top 25 win within the Missouri Valley Football Conference. It almost like makes you think about, is this NDSU versus the field again this year? They're winning on average by 34 points. Am I just saying too much about them? Is it possible that they're not going to win it all this year?
I mean, there's always a possibility, right? Because you can't factor in certain things, right? Like what happens if Cole Payton goes down? What happens if they lose, a few key players on the outside? Like you just never know with that. But I think if all things remain the same, Craig, I don't think that's crazy. We had an article earlier this year just about how many true national title contenders there's been over, since like 1995. There's some years, Craig, where there's only one. Like you think even back to 2023 when South Dakota State repeated. I don't think anyone was ever going to push that team. They just had way too much talent, and even Montana didn't have anything for them in the national championship game. Maybe it's just one of those years, and we've had multiple years where North Dakota State was really the only true national title contender. I'm not ready to go there yet, but it's trending that direction, Craig, because I look at probably the two biggest competitors, Montana State, South Dakota State for right now. The problem is, though, I just think there's very clear advantages the Bison have right now based on the film I've seen that they can exploit. And I don't know if you could do that vice versa for North Dakota State because what is their weakness right now, Craig? They're running the football well. Like, is Barika Kapinu going to run for 1,500 yards? Probably not, but he's going to get you enough yards where that run game isn't really stagnant. You've got DJ Scott kind of emerging as that number 2 back. We wondered who was going to be behind Barico. You got Cole Payton's legs, and Cole Payton is playing at such an elite level at quarterback, Craig, and I think that's the difference. I knew their defense was going to be good, right? They had too many returning pieces coming back. The secondary was a weakness last year. People labeled it. All those guys have grown up now, played a lot of football. The D line's playing outstanding, but it's really Cole Payton, Craig. He's playing at a level that I know the Bison fans were high on him, Craig. There's no way they saw this coming. This past weekend, he graded out at a 99.9 on deep ball passes on Pro Football Focus. He's one of the highest graded players in the country, and his development as a passer, Craig, along with him picking and choosing his shots with when he takes off with his legs and makes plays in the open field. He has the highlight plays, Craig. He has the explosive plays. He has the down to down, just hitting a slant pass here, making the correct decision here, not turning the football over. All these things have led into the Bison, in my opinion, being the heavy favorite to repeat as national champions and be that number 1 team.
Well, a week ago, I did an offensive player of the year for the first half of the season. I went with Cole Payton. Basically, that's like saying he's the favorite for the Walter Payton Award. Tremendous amount of quarterbacks this year across the FCS. Is he your favorite for the Walter Payton Award?
Yeah, it's funny. We're actually getting ready to do one for FCS Football Central where we all rank our top 3 for every major award. And I believe all 3 of us have Cole Payton as number 1, including myself. And I'll say this, it's going to be interesting to see, because the one person I'm kind of keeping an eye on, Craig, is Teron Dickens at Western Carolina. If he continues to go on the same path he is, and he leads Western to the SoCon championship, finishes undefeated as a starter, I think there's going to be a conversation between them, and it's going to be an interesting conversation, right? Because you're probably going to have the gaudy stats of Teron Dickens, who might throw for 3,000 yards despite missing the first 3 games of the year, and you're going to have Cole Payton, who I think, Craig, is going to have more Walter Payton moments. And I talked about this on our show a few weeks ago. As media members, we should do this more often, where P4 media members talk about Heisman moments. Craig, look at how many highlight plays Cole Payton has. Again, big games this year against ranked opponents. This past weekend, when he went on that big touchdown run late in the second half against Southern Illinois, it looked like he was just playing on rookie mode. And I think that's the thing that separates him. And then also, too, his efficiency numbers are going to be off the charts. And I believe it was Sam from Bison 1660 that put this out. He has as many touchdowns as he does incompletions in the past, 3 games. That is unbelievable to be playing in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, to be playing as the top FCS team and be that efficient. Give his weapons some credit, because it's really nice to have Bryce Lance and some of those wide receivers on the outside. But Cole Payton right now, Craig, is the best player in FCS football.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I do think he has a chance to set the single season record for passing efficiency. He's been that off the chart, and just, obviously Teron Dickens will soon qualify for those national leaders as well. So he'll be right there in the mix. And Derek Robertson's off the charts too at Monmouth. You mentioned Pennu and Scott running the ball. I mean, if either one gets dinged up, they maybe don't have the running back depth there. I mean, that's just nitpicking on where they're just on a flying start, the way they're just rolling every team. Now, there's a little thing called the Dakota marker game that'll be coming in another week, October 25th, as we mentioned earlier. If South Dakota State is to pull an upset, win at home, and that's it, they're at home, that gives them a major advantage there. How do the Jackrabbits get it done this time against the Bison?
This is going to be a lot of ifs, and it's going to sound easy in theory, but Craig, it's not going to be as easy as it might sound coming out of my mouth when I say this. But the number one thing you have to do is contain Cole Payton. And I know that sounds so much easier than probably it is in real life, but that's going to be the number one thing, Craig. You can't let him be the efficient passer and kill you with his legs, because they haven't been super explosive in just the downhill rushing attack. Now, Barica had a really explosive game against Illinois State, but when you look back at some of the weeks, that's really not where they were getting their explosive plays. It was Cole Payton in the passing game, and it was Cole Payton when he on these broken plays when he gets out of the pocket. You got to take those away because as soon as North Dakota State starts generating explosive plays, that offense becomes even more deadly than it already is because they can be efficient, right, Greg? Usually, when you look at offenses, you're either very good at explosive plays, but you're not great down to down, or you're good down to down walking down the football field, but you lack those explosive plays. And that's what separates elite offenses from great offenses. North Dakota State can do both. And I think the other thing is too, the South Dakota State offensive line has to have the best game of the year. That's really been their weakness, and it's something that I didn't expect to be their weakness. I thought they did. I thought they had a bunch of good pieces coming back. I thought a lot of the new guys had experience and had a really high ceiling. They just haven't gelled yet. I'm not saying they're not a talented unit. They just haven't gelled yet, Craig. They've really struggled with pass protection. And then I think even with Julius Lawfridge having some good games, right? When you look week to week, he really has not been as efficient week to week as I would expect to see from him. So I think the offensive line has to have a big game, and you got to take Cole Payton's legs away from him. You got to take something away from the Bison offense. And then on the flip side, Chase Mason has to play better. I think he's played well this year, Craig, and I'm not saying he hasn't, but you're going to need a Walter Payton level performance from Chase Mason in that game, and you can't turn the football over. The Bison have been so good at forcing turnovers. That was the difference this past weekend against Southern Illinois. That game was competitive until you started turning the football over, and the Bison were able to put that game away and pull away late. I think that's going to be the keys for South Dakota State to pull off this upset.
I agree. I mean, it seems like there's occasionally a little bit of a valley during some of the Jackrabbit team. I mean, we're nitpicking again. I mean, that team deserves to be number 2 nationally. That beating Montana State. They have 3 nationally top 25 wins themselves. So they've been very strong at stopping other teams on third down. I think it's maybe under 27%, and they're going to have to do that in this game. I mean, the Bisons, we talk about their efficiency, but if somehow, they drop 10% efficiency on third downs, that makes a difference because, it's almost like the Bisons are scoring, at will. So being at home is certainly going to be huge. I mean, let's face it, the game of the year, we would have said that in the preseason, and we did. And it just looks like it's going to come to fruition as the number 1 versus number 2 teams. Whoever wins time of possession really tends to win this matchup. Got a great stat for you. I think it's like 22 out of 23. I always use it every year. I'll have to look it up going into next week. But 22 out of 23 times the team with the time of possession has higher possession has won. So I'm certainly looking forward to that one. We got to get through this week, but they both should win on for sure. But there are big games everywhere. I do like our FCS game of the week. Lindenwood is hosting Tennessee Tech, number 8, undefeated Tennessee Tech in the OVC Big South. This is the first year for Lindenwood to be playoff eligible. They're 2-0 in the league. This is their shot. I think that's kind of my show me week. Do you think, I mean, let's talk about some of the teams that have a shot here to, make the playoffs for the first time. We'll start with Lindenwood.
It's going to be a really, really tough matchup for them, I think, this weekend, Craig. Now, here's the I would say caveat. If Vespers does not play well this weekend, they'll have a shot because last weekend was really the first time Tennessee Tech showed they could have some flaws, right? I thought Charleston Southern did a really, really good job making him uncomfortable. They still won comfortably, right? What was it, 2 touchdowns in that game? That's the key is you have to take away something from Tennessee Tech because, I mean, if you just let Vespers sit back in the pocket and pick you apart, he's such an efficient passer, such an accurate passer. He could do it all day. And they have, what are they, 4 or 5 deep at running back right now? I mean, they did such a good job bringing in talent from the portal, and Noah Robinson's having a really good year out there at wide receiver. The defense has been elite, Craig, right? I mean, they've had the number 1 defense in the big OVC Big South for multiple years now, or at least top 2. So I think offensively, finding a way to make Vespers uncomfortable is going to be Lindenwood's thing. I just question a little bit if that offense is going to be able to find much success against this defense. are you going to be able to keep Tennessee Tech out of the 30? So I think if this game turns into a shootout, Lindenwood does not fare as well. You've got to keep this game a little bit low scoring and muddy it up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they have to get it done. They're pretty strong at home, and they did shut out Tennessee Tech at home 2 years ago. So they beat Stony Brook at home. I mean, those are just, you got to give them a shot in this one. And I tell you, a team that's already, when I say show me, they've already done it. Presbyterian. That's a potential first-time playoff qualifier out of the Pioneer League. I mean, they still have tough games on the road at Dayton, who leads the league right now, and at St. Thomas. You must be impressed by Presbyterian.
Colin Hurst, man. I'm so impressed with Colin Hurst. And also, too, how about that defense? That defense is playing elite right now. And I think right now they should be the favorites to come out of the Pioneer League. And I know the playoff committee has a rule against like rematches in the first round. I would love to see Mercer Presbyterian first round. Give it to me. Like, we got Braden Atkinson now. That's a completely different game. Throw the rule book out. Let us see that. And the funny enough is they probably still will get a SoCon team. If Western Carolina gets in, they're probably going to get Western Carolina in the first round due to that geographical location. I'm really impressed with Presbyterian. And Craig, you did a great story earlier this year. People don't understand how far down this program was just a few years ago, and to see them with 2 big SoCon wins. And I know Furman didn't look the best this weekend, but Furman's probably going to be a 6-7 win team this year, most likely. And they beat a Mercer team. And I know DJ Smith played and it wasn't Braden Atkinson, but this Mercer team's going to compete. It looks like the best team in the SoCon right now, and might make a push for a top 16 seed, Craig. And so I think those 2 wins are so big. And if they can finish undefeated, I'm going to be very curious to see if the committee overlooks strength of schedule. It might even give them a top 16 seed if they finish 12-0. I'll be so curious. And I think this is the first time in a while, Craig, that the Pioneer has gotten this type of media coverage, that has gotten this type of intrigue. And it's so cool that it was Presbyterian to bring this to the leagues. I think a lot of people, when St. Thomas moved up, thought that they were going to be the team to bring this type of attention to the Pioneer League. And I think for Presbyterian to be that team is even more interesting and special. And that's what makes the FCS so great.
Yeah. I mean, Presbyterian, Lindenwood, we think, they have they have the best shot, first time, except for the Ivy League. We know we're getting a first-time qualifier out of the Ivy League. Can anybody stop Harvard?
No, I don't know if we can stop Harvard. I mean, they're so good. They're so good. And funny enough, it starts with Jaden Craig. And I almost said Craig. It starts with Jaden Craig, but he is the. I don't want to say underrated, right? Because a lot of media people know he's good, but I still don't think he gets the respect he deserves. Like, when we have these conversations about the best quarterbacks at this level, Craig, we should always be mentioning Jaden Craig. And me personally, I think he might be the number 1 quarterback out of the FCS in this draft class. When you look at how your game translates to the next level, I think his game might translate the best out of all the quarterbacks. Now, Cole Payton might be the best player right now in the FCS, but I don't know if Cole Payton's game translates as well to the NFL compared to Jaden Craig. And I think he's going to be one of these guys, Craig, when we get to the draft cycle and we get to the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl and all these all-star games, Jaden Craig's going to go to one of these big ones. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's not the Senior Bowl, and people are going to be like, who the hell is Jaden Craig? Well, where did he at? And that's when me, you, Sam, our guy Kevin, like all of us are going to get the phone call and be like, can you come on our show and tell us about Jaden Craig? Where has he been? And that's the type of trajectory I see him taking. And Craig, it's kind of similar. I don't want to compare him to North Dakota State in this aspect, but in conference play, where's their weakness? Their defensive line is playing well. The secondary is led by an All-American safety. They're forcing turnovers. Jaden Craig's playing well. The running game might not be always there. Maybe that's their weakness, but when they need the running game to work, they get it to work. And we talk about the line of scrimmage in the Ivy League. It's elite. They recruit really and develop really good offensive linemen. And part of it is they're not impacted by the transfer portal in the same way. So they're able to get these guys in the program. You can't redshirt. So they prepare these guys to play as quickly as possible. And Harvard's going to be such an interesting case because, Craig, what happens and how high could they go in these playoff seeding conversations if they finish 10-0? How high does a 10-0 Harvard rank in the committee's eyes? And I think that's why I'm happy the committee's releasing 2 top 10s, because by the time they release the second top 10, Harvard might be 7-0. Are they in that committee's top 10? Because if they are, then we're talking top 8 seed potentially for Harvard.
I agree. Harvard has looked the best and has separated itself from the rest of the league to date. especially when you think 41-7 over Brown, just, unbelievable what they did to Brown, and Brown's had a terrific year. But the Ivy League tends to get wacky. I mean, they've moved rivalry games to the back end of the schedule. Harvard still has to go to Princeton. They're at Yale. In between there,
Penn.
Dartmouth, Penn, Columbia, perhaps. I forget who the other one is, but still, there are tough games ahead for Harvard. But Jaden Craig, I mean, he has so much experience. I like his arm efficiency. I think it's stronger than maybe he's given credit for it. I just remember back to his freshman year how impressive he's been. So the Ivy League is certainly going to have their first time qualifier this year, and we look forward to it. Now, our next segment, we're going to have the Jackson State coach, TC Taylor. They're up to number 14 nationally. It's our highest ranking of the year. What do you think of their 5-1 season to date?
Man, listen, I cover a lot of HBCU football. Obviously, my other co-host on my show is an assistant head coach in the SWAC, and actually really good friends with TC. I've talked to him a bunch. I've done a bunch of interviews with him. He is, and I said this earlier this week when we broke down this game. When we had, and similar to this Jaden Craig argument, when we talk about the best head coaches in the FCS, I wish TC Taylor was more in this conversation, because here's what's happened outside of the HBCU space, Craig. A lot of people saw what Dion did at Jackson and just thought that TC came in and inherited all those players and all those coaches. After they lost that last Celebration Bowl, all the staff left, all the players left. They've had to replace like 60, 70 players. Year one, he wins, 8 games? And then the next year he comes back, walks to the SWAC championship, dominates in the Celebration Bowl, and Craig comes back and the team's better. They find they have one of the best NIL collectives in the FCS. They retain all this talent, and you look at, and when you just start listing names on this team, like look at wide receiver with Nate Rimbert and Shamar Savage, and their number one wide receiver, Craig, is hurt for the season, and Jonas Fortillion. So, and they're still producing with Jadalen Dupree. And then you look at running back with Ahmad Miller and Travis Terrell, who was a freshman All-American, Jerry Rice Award finalist last year. Jeremiah Williams, a D-tackle, preseason All-American. You have 2 all-conference linebackers. The secondary is all new, but they're living up to the hype. He's done such a good job, Craig. And if he goes back-to-back in Celebration Bowl wins, man, he's going to be in this upper echelon of FCS coaches, in my opinion. And I think Jackson is by far the number 1 team in HBCU football. I think North Carolina Central is trailing right there in second. They've looked really, really good the past few weeks since that New Hampshire loss, but Jackson should be the odds-on favorite to win the SWAC. You look ahead on their schedule, there's nobody out barring a massive upset that should really give them any competition. And I think what TC and Coach O, the general manager up there, have done with this Tigers team is so impressive and still doesn't get enough credit, even though they got the biggest fan base and it gets a lot of the coverage in the HBCU space. But in the national FCS space, Craig, because they don't play in the playoffs, fans haven't really sat down and analyzed what they've done with this program, and it's so impressive.
I think you've given us a ton of topics to bring up with Coach Taylor in the next segment. So we're going to take a break, and when we're back, we're going to have Coach TC Taylor on from Jackson State. And as we go to break, we're going to look at the winners of this past week's Stats Reform FCS National Players and Teams of the Week. This is the FCS Edge. Welcome back to the FCS Edge. Zach and I are pleased to be joined by Jackson State head coach TC Taylor. His Tigers, of course, are pursuing back-to-back SWAC and Celebration Bowl titles. Coach, it is going to be hard for any game the rest of the season to top your team's 38-34 win over Alabama State. How do you put that thriller into words?
You had to be there. That's a game you had to be at, but that was the expectation. You had 2 programs playing at a real high level, and hats off to Coach Eddie Robinson and that Alabama State team. I mean, it came down to the last play. It really did come down to the last play. It was about who had the ball last and who's willing to make those stops in those moments. But great football game. I think one of the better or one of the greatest football games I ever been a part of as a player, as a football coach. And then what better way than to get a win like that on homecoming? It's homecoming, 40,000 fans in the stands. It was just a great atmosphere, great football game, and that's a good football team that we beat. So I can't say enough about how excited I am for my football team right now.
Coach, we've talked a little bit at Swag Media Day just about JaCobian and his development. Now the year got off to a slower start, man, but I don't know if there's a quarterback that's playing better football than him right now these past 3 games. What is the biggest difference you've seen in him since that switch has looked like it flipped? And man, how much better do you think he could get as a quarterback going into the later part of this year?
Hey, I just need him to be that guy we've seen the last few weeks. That's what the guy we've been waiting on. This is a 3-year starter for us. And, like you said, he did start. He came out the gate slow. He knew it. He accepted it. Then he had the injury going into the Tuskegee game and had to sit out that game. And I just think that did him some good. Sitting on the sideline, seeing the game, able to regroup. But if he just plays consistent, that's the biggest thing with JaCobian I talk about, just being consistent, taking care of the football, and trust these weapons you got around you. You got a really strong run game. These receivers are playing at the high level. And how about Quincy Riley, our tight end? He woke up a little bit this weekend too. So he just has to play consistent, trust the people around him, and go out there and execute the plays. But if he does elevate his level of play, hey, great for Jackson State football. But right now he's playing at the level we need him to play at.
Coach, last year's championship team really finished strong. Some of those wins in November and December. How about this year's team? How would you compare your first half of the season, your 5-1, versus the first half of last season?
I think it's pretty much identical. At that time last year, around this same time, I didn't know, how good we were. We had that tough loss against Gremlin last year, and I saw how we responded as a program, as a football team, and it's kind of similar to this year. We started out the gate slow. Defense always is playing extremely high level here. They were doing a great job. I knew we had the weapons on offense. It was JaCobian getting going. It was about him getting kick-started. No different than last year. We was trying to figure it out last year. We played Cam McCoy in some games. JaCobian was splitting time. Once we figured out how the route we were going to go there, it kind of took off. And this year, just took JaCobian a little time to get going. I can't say enough about our freshman quarterback, Jared Lockhart. He got us through the Tuskegee game. And then, all right, JaCobian comes back against Southern and he wakes up. So it's very similar to last year's roster team, the schedule set up and the way things are going now. Just going into next week, it kind of reminds me of last year a little bit. Just got to, go out there and play football. That was a game that we kind of gave away. We felt like we gave away with 4 turnovers. I think 2 of them were for touchdowns for them. And that's what we've been emphasizing in this bye week, trying to find ways of not giving a football game away and let's be efficient.
Coach, this offseason, everyone talked about the defensive tackle room, but it's really been Quincy Ivory, man, at that edge spot that has stolen the headlines. And can you talk a little bit about how versatile he is? Because I know, Coach, I know you don't talk about the media headlines, but everybody was like, why is Quincy dropping into coverage? Why can't he just rush the passer every play? Well, you saw this weekend with that pick, how athletic he is. How versatile is he, and what's his ceiling in this defense?
Quincy is an amazing player. We were blessed to get in here from the University of Florida, but it started out as a SWAC guy. He has a crazy journey, but we seen it all camp. We seen the talent that this young man has all camp, and we just tried to do and utilize his talents on the football field. And I'm so glad he was able to go out there and get that interception because everybody wants him to rush every down, but Quincy could be a awesome outside linebacker, and that's basically what he is for us. We try to create those situations where he can drop into some coverage and some drop 8 stuff, then disguise it where he rushes off the edge. But the thing with Quincy, he never complains about whatever schematically what you put him into. He's just going to go out there and play at a high level. Could play in the inside backer. He can go in and play 4-eye. He's done all those things for us. He just has that motor and that it. He has the motor. He has that it. He's going every time you see the ball carrier get to the ground. Quincy Ivory is around the pile. That's why you see him accumulate all those tackles. Pass rush ability. I compare it. It's comparable. No disregard to James Houston, what he was, but it's kind of similar. This guy can rush the passer. And probably would have more sacks if we did rush him off the edge, but I think that's going to help him and show his versatility for the next level when he can stand up and play outside backer and things like that. And we're just going to continue to try to, create those matchups. When you have a guy like that defensively, it's all about matchups. It's all about trying to create matchups for him. And Coach Quinn and that defensive staff has done a great job, and he's answered the bell.
You mentioned Quincy's journey. Your journey's been outstanding as well. I mean, you're a Jackson State alum. You actually preceded Deion Sanders to the coaching staff. What can you tell us about, since you've become head coach before the 2023 season, what did you keep of Coach Prime's kind of system, and where have you put your own stamp on the program?
Just a few things like the way we recruited when he was here. We wanted to continue to recruit at a high level. I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, and we've done a good job of that. We've been right there with everybody recruiting. I think that's the major reason for all the success we're having is the recruiting piece. Also, too, there's the demand from my coaches and getting the right coaching staff in here. I lost a lot of coaches after 23 and had to replace a lot of guys, but I felt like I did a good job of bringing in the right guys to fit these players in each room. And then after the 24 season, I lost two really high quality guys. Khalid James, he's a hell of a defensive line coach at Western Kentucky now. Chris Orr is one of the best in the business. He's with he was our linebackers coach. He's with the Chiefs now. We had to replace those guys. So just bringing in quality coaches and, the recruiting piece, that's something that I learned from Coach Prime. And, that's an intricate piece to any program. I guess the things that I put on in myself is relying a little more on the high school talent. I really believe it's some really good high school football here in the South. We got some guys in the state of Mississippi that are playing for us as true freshmen from the state of Georgia, Texas, and everything. Coach Prime was a little more relying on the transfer portal, and it worked out for us. It produced 2 SWAC championships, but I just believe in growing my own garden. Getting those high school kids in here and getting the most out of them. A lot of them are looked over now because of the transfer portal, and we're able to hit on 3-star, even some 4-star type talent because everybody in every other program, no knock to them, are relying on that transfer portal. But the high school route has been paid dividends for us as well, and we have also gotten some transfer portal guys. But it's been a great vetting process when we go get those guys. Like Quincy Ivory, he is a great young man. You know what I mean? Like we sometimes he might not be the most talented, but does he fit our culture? And that's what we're big on with that. But I'd say relying on a little more of that high school talent for me.
Coach, the offensive line had a few new pieces. You already know any show you're on with me, I'm going to ask about the offensive line. No sacks allowed the past 2 games. Only 5 tackles for loss allowed in the past 2 games against 2 pretty good defenses. Talk a little bit about how that group has gelled and how good of a job Coach Manny Ramirez is doing in that room.
Manny Ramirez is like a heaven sent. He's heaven sent. He does a great job of getting the most out of those young men. That's one of the spots I'm talking about where we played a lot of true freshmen on that offensive line, and that's he's done a good job of what I want to say of developing talent. He does a great job. He's been mixing and matching, some guys out there, but we got some guys up front that can really play the game. They are. I put them up against anybody in the country with the size, the athleticism. You talk about Quay Davis, 6'7" right tackle. Mason Barton, he's another 6'7" left tackle. Mason's just a sophomore. He's played a lot as a true freshman. Quay came in here as a true freshman. DeAndre Towns Blue, he's the preseason all-conference guy, the leader up front that's doing a great job there. He's a versatile guy. Came in and was a tackle from junior college, but was versatile enough and understood what we were trying to do and physical enough that we had to bounce him inside, and he accepted it. So it's just a host of guys. I can go down that list all day, but we preach physicality. Anytime you play a TC Taylor team, it's going to be a physical game, and we don't want to. We don't preach. We want to. We're going to run the football. We're going to run the football to set up the pass and take those shots downfield. And Coach Manning and those offensive linemen, they allow us to do that each and every week.
Are visiting with Coach T.C. Taylor of Jackson State. They're on a bye this week, and then they're taking on Grambling State in Las Vegas. Coach, the Celebration Bowl has been terrific for the SWAC, for the MEAC. It's lucrative, highly visible, successful. But now that your program has won the Celebration Bowl, and you might do it again this year, does it become harder not to participate in the FCS playoffs?
We was talking about that as a staff on yesterday. I'm glad you asked that question. We're kind of torn over here. You got some love the Celebration Bowl and to talk about the national championship being a HBCU national champ, but also too we talk about wanting to compete in FCS. We feel like we could be highly competitive in that in the playoff race. We because what we do, we evaluate a roster in FCS. HBCU, no matter what it is, and just try to compare where our guys at. Do we match up good and everything? And we feel like it'll be some good matchups in there if we were in the playoffs. But we understand it. That's kind of the deal. You go out and have all the success. You got to go to Celebration Bowl. It could be a situation though. We prepare for both because it could be a situation. Say for instance, Alabama State. We lose that game. We'll finish the season strong where we're a 2-loss team. The playoff people got to take a good look at us. So we prepare for both. But whatever lies out in front, we'll be ready for it and ready to go.
You'll take those trophies no matter where they come, right?
I love trophies and rings.
Coach, I know how picky you are about your wide receivers, man. And everyone kind of knew what Nate Rembert was coming into the year. What Shamar Savage was. Obviously, Jonas Fortillion suffered that injury, but you have two younger, Jamil Gardner and Janaylin Dupree, that have stepped up. Talk a little bit about their development and how they're emerging as leaders in a room that was already filled with a bunch of leaders and experienced guys.
We saw it last year out of those two. We saw what they were going to be this year. Jamil Gardner, we were talking about transfers early. That's what something when we do. Also, when we go deal with these transfers, a lot of times we like to catch them early. He was a young man that came in as a sophomore, but he was really lighting it up over there at Kent State. He just wanted another change of scenery. He came in here last year and he finished the season out strong, opposite of Jonas Fortillion. Explosive, everything you want in a Z receiver. Him also with Janaylin Dupree, big play capability. And, once we evaluated the roster, at the end of the year, Nate Rembert comes available. Shamar Savage comes available. Shoot, let's add more to the party. You lose Isaiah Spencer. Isaiah Spencer was highly productive, and that's why you see him land at a Virginia Tech, over there in the ACC. But we had to replace a few guys, but still in all, we still felt like we had enough. But those two young men are having stellar seasons. It's nothing that's really surprised us, because we knew what they were last year. The challenging piece has been to get guys like Nate and Shamar to come in and buy in, because where they came from, they were the guys. Now you're amongst a bunch of guys. Everybody has that ability to, be explosive in our offense. It's really a stacked receiver room, and they've done a good job. And I tell them all the time, you might not catch 70 passes in, this year, but you're going to be good. We're going to find ways to utilize you and make you, allow you to impact football games, and that's what you've seen with both. Shamar was patient. We talked about going into the Alabama A&M, this is the week we got to get Shamar Savage going, going into the Southern game, this is the week we got to really utilize Nate Rembert, so when we getting down those back stretches of the season, you got a host of guys that can go out there and play. But those two young men you're talking about are highly productive guys, great young men, really, really talented receivers.
This last one, you mentioned FCS playoffs. We've seen North Carolina A&T and Tennessee State on North Dakota State's schedule. How come we haven't seen Jackson State on North Dakota State's schedule?
That's an administrative question.
Where's Ashley at?
They line them up, I go play them. But that would be something. You talk about one of the premier FCS teams in that in their program. That would be something to see. And then I feel like it would be a great gauge for us to see where we are in FCS. So that's something that I believe in. You see a lot of these schools too. Let me say this, that play those FBS opponents early on, but how about let's play more FCS, out of conference opponents to see what it would like, get that vibe of the playoffs. You get a playoff type feel. I think it's good for FCS football in general. But let me say this too, I do get it. Some of those programs need those, the funds that they're getting to play those FBS schools also though.
40,000 or more at the Vet with the Bison in town. That would be a great home and home series.
I guarantee it'll be more than that.
Yeah, it would be that'd be one of those 50K, 60K games right there. Coach, my last question, and I talked to you about this. I think it was after the Celebration Bowl. I saw the emotion on the sideline in Atlanta. I don't know if I saw more emotion from you ever than this past weekend, man.
I've been hearing
It,
that all week,
it,
all week.
you could tell how much that game meant to you, and obviously now you guys are the favorites to go on to Atlanta. You go to the Celebration Bowl if you guys handle business. Just talk about the emotion after that game, and what just came over you when you guys made that goal line stop there on the 1 yard line.
I was so happy for my team and my coaches. To be put in that situation, we think the previous play, the game is over. And you give one of the best, if not the best quarterback, I think, in FCS, the football on the 1.5 yard line. And, you got one of the top rated defenses going up on the 1.5 yard line against Andrew Body. You got one of the top defensive coordinators, one of the top offense. It was just so much into that. And for us to go out there and to stop Andrew Body on that play in a game of that magnitude, I couldn't contain myself. I couldn't contain myself. It was like the play before when they gave him the time. I'm over here giving the refs a hard time, but my players, they come to me, the defensive guys, like, Coach, you need to chill out. We got this. So I said, okay, I'm gonna get back over here and get out of the way. And then when I see Ashton Taylor sell out the way that he did to go stone that running back right there, because that's a good back, good quarterback. It just came out of me, and then my wife was sitting on that end of the end zone. I'm running to her, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to shake Eddie Rob hand and everything. But, hey, man, it's college football. This is the time of year, man, the game is played with emotion, and I know my team feeds off of that. I feed off of them, but I'm just so proud of them and my coaching staff to get a win like that because, again, I've been telling everybody, like, Alabama State is for real. That is a good program. They got a really, really good football team over there. They're well coached, and they've been, that's been a hell of a game the last 2 years. And Ashton Taylor made the clutch play last year. Our linebacker made a clutch play when he caused the safety back there, and for him to go do it this past weekend, that's where all that emotion came from. And we're kind of still taking it all in. That's what I told him too. Good thing we had this bye week this week to kind of let this all soak in, and we'll come back in here Sunday, shake that off, and get going.
Well, Coach T.C. Taylor at Jackson State, we hope you get a little rest and relaxation this weekend. Probably won't. I know you're ingrained in everything football-wise. So, Zach and I do appreciate the time that you spent with
Anytime.
us. We love learning about your program.
Anytime. I appreciate what you guys do, really.
Absolutely, Coach. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, we're going to take a break from the FCS Edge, and when we come back in segment 3, Zach and I will have our pick'ems for Week 8. This is the FCS Edge. Welcome back to the FCS Edge. Our third segment is the Pick'em segment, and we have a good one. We already talked about it. Game of the week is Tennessee Tech 6-0, number 8. They're at Lindenwood, who's 3-3, but 2-0 in the league. They're playoff eligible for the first time. They've been gearing towards this one for a while now, knowing that Tennessee Tech was going to have a huge year. There's also Gardner-Webb at 2-0 in the conference. The next 2 weeks, Gardner-Webb plays both of these teams. So it's just a fun way to end the month here with the OVC Big South. You talked about it before. I know you're picking Tennessee Tech, but tell us a little more about the game.
Yeah, I think this is the game that we see Keikoa Vespers bounce back, and I think the run game is going to be really big. I think they're going to lean on Quinn in that running back room, but then also too, I just think the where the matchup kind of falls apart for me. I think Lindenwood's going to struggle against those front seven. Tennessee Tech is just so deep; they play so many guys in that front, and they rotate fresh bodies, and it's something that. I think when we had Coach Wilder on, he talked about if you want to compete nationally at the top of this subdivision, you've got to have depth at the line of scrimmage. And I think they just right now have more depth. But I do want to say this, and I don't want to just make it where we just dismiss Lindenwood completely. There's a path for them to make this game competitive. I kind of talked about it earlier if they muddy it up. But can we just give them a round of applause for how they've continued to develop this program, continued to push toward and strive to be competitive at the Division I level. And it feels like this program is just 1 or 2 years away, Craig, from making a real push to the postseason and might even win a conference championship here.
Yeah, their win over Stony Brook earlier this year, I think it was 30-27, really stood out in my mind because Stony Brook came in nationally ranked into the season and just, they have their running back, Roland Dempster, and it just, what a job by Lindenwood at home. To give him a shot, I think Nate Glantz, their quarterback, has to have a huge game. And he's been having a couple good years now, but if he does it here, it'll really instill confidence into his team because they haven't been in this moment. Tennessee Tech has some experienced players. They've added some transfers. They were kind of built for this moment. Lindenwood is a little bit of a surprise, but I do think Nate Glantz. I mean, you mentioned the front seven on Tennessee Tech. Theron Gaines has been off the charts this year, almost an All-American level. The one thing they had was a lot back on defense. They added a lot offensively when it came to the transfers. I think you're right that Quinn and Jennings, their other running back, can get it done against this Lindenwood rush defense is just okay. I'm going to go with Tennessee Tech at home. I mean, but it's still a fun matchup. Wouldn't be surprising if it goes a little deeper into the game as a close one. We do have the one ranked matchup of the week. Number 9, North Dakota is at number 12, Southern Illinois. Every week there are ranked games within the Missouri Valley Conference, and this is a good one this week. It's the home team has won every time in this matchup, so the Salukis have that advantage. Tell us what you think of this game.
Listen, this was so close to a 50-50 game. Like, you sent this game, and I was like, I pick both. I pick a tie, but I'll say this: North Dakota is playing so well behind Kaminsky at quarterback, but the problem is it's still a different team on the road, and I think they shook off those demons right a little bit against Montana. They were so competitive in that one, but I think Southern Illinois is really itching to have a get-back game after that loss to North Dakota State. They played so well in the first half against North Dakota State in Fargo. Turnovers kind of shifted that game. I think DJ Williams is the difference here. I think he's a bona fide Walter Payton candidate, potentially a top 3 finalist. Give me Southern Illinois on the back of DJ Williams. And on top of that, too, I think the defense just makes one too many plays down the stretch. They find a way to get a turnover here, a big stop somewhere. And I still think this is the high scoring game, Craig. So whatever the over is, take the over. I think both these teams probably get well into the 30s.
I think the over is 100.
Yeah, probably.
I'm going to go North Dakota. I think they've been tough against the run. I think that helps them with stopping DJ Williams a little bit, and the offense. Jerry Kaminsky, we talk about so fondly. The year he's had for the Fighting Hawks. I'm going to take North Dakota getting it done on the road here. You mentioned Stony Brook earlier. If there's a show me game, here's another one. They have to get it done at Monmouth. Monmouth, number 11, 5-1. They just have so much offense. It has to be Roland Dempster getting it done, running the ball and keeping the Hawks on the sidelines. But I think you have to go with Monmouth here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Monmouth. I just think I don't know about quarterback play for Stony Brook. Has been a little bit inconsistent at times, and I think you would have to have a balanced offense because all Monmouth needs is one stop, Craig, and they win the game. That's kind of how it's been for them. You get one defensive stop, and Derek Robertson and this wide receiving core is going to give them problems. And I think they're just so deep offensively, Craig. Like, if you take away Josh Derry, TJ Spate will make a play. Take away TJ Spate, guess what? Rodney Nelson's still averaging like 100 yards per game on the ground, and they just have so many weapons. And so I think that's what gives Monmouth the edge here. But don't be surprised if Stony Brook gives them a run for their money because Roland Dempster is having another All-American level year.
He's tremendous. All right, let's go back to the Missouri Valley Conference. Number 10, Illinois State. Obviously, having a good year, but not a great year. Other than that NDSU game, they haven't kind of wowed us yet. Playing Youngstown State, which is kind of a desperate team here at 3-3, 0-2 in the conference. They really can't afford to go to 0-3. I say they do, that the Redbirds get it done.
I'm actually going to go upset here. Give me Youngstown State to pull off the upset. I think the difference here is Bo Brungard. I think he can cause a bunch of problems with his legs, and I think Max Tomczak's been a matchup nightmare on the outside. He's having an outstanding year, and I think the defense can make a few plays here and maybe make Rittenhouse a little bit uncomfortable, take away the run game a bit. I like Youngstown State. I think we talked about chaos week. I think this Missouri Valley race behind North Dakota and North Dakota State and South Dakota State's a bit chaotic. Any of these teams could beat anyone. I think this is one of the chaos wins. Give me Youngstown to pull off the upset on the road.
I like that because the pecking order behind the top two is still kind of figuring its way out. All right, Lamar, they're at home, number 17. maybe they won't have to win a bad beats game this week. I mean, they get Texas Rio Grande Valley entering at 5-1. Lamar somehow gets it done. They've won 5 in a row. Is this an upset?
I mean, I almost went upset here, Craig, just because, I mean, I don't know how Lamar keeps winning. I watch these games, Craig, and I'm like, man, they are just playing with fire week after week. Now, obviously, not having their starting quarterback really, really hurts them, but they just continuously make plays. That defense is so opportunistic. They just find ways to win. And I think it goes to coaching, right? Pete Razamondo deserves some respect for what he's done with this program. I think they get it done, but the one concern I have here, Craig, I think upset alert would be the proper term for this game. If UTRGV turns this thing into a shootout, we could be having a different conversation here, and this could be one of those wins, Craig, that really just shakes up the rankings because you have a UTRGV team that would go to 6-1. Craig, they got a lot of non-D1 wins, but now they got a ranked win. Their only loss would be to Southeastern Louisiana, which is going to be a top 25 team here. I think this has upset alert written all over it, but I'm going to go with Lamar at home to find a way to win in the second half.
UTRGV, I mean, the final score against Southeastern Louisiana was 45-31. Certainly a quality score when you look at losses. It's a little deceptive in my eyes. It was 42-17 at one point. They made it a little closer. You have to give them all the credit in the world for the year they're having, and the fan base has been great, supporting them. So I'm going to stick with Lamar. Sometimes teams just tend to win ugly, close games and figure it out every single week. So I'm going to say the Cardinals get it done at home. All right, let's go to the United Athletic Conference. Number 13, Abilene Christian. That's the third team other than North Dakota State and South Dakota State to have 3 ranked wins this year. They're at Southern Utah. Southern Utah could be tough at home and with that run game, but, they lose some, they win some at home. They've just been a little bit disappointing. I think Abilene Christian's kind of on a mission to get to that chance to face Tarleton.
Yeah, give me Abilene. I think Stone Earl's a little bit too much for this Southern Utah defense, and even when they play well, man, I just don't think Southern Utah has found ways to win, and not knowing how to win, it plays a big part in college football. So I think Abilene Christian is proven, and every time they face a trap game / big game, Craig, they find a way to deliver. I still can't really explain that UIW loss. I don't know what exactly happened in that game. It just feels like they just overlooked, and I think that was kind of their wake-up call. I think they roll here on the road.
Okay. All right, we talked Tarleton State. Here they are, number 7-0, number 3 in the country, hosting West Georgia, who's lost their last 2, obviously, after a 5-0 start. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, give me Tarleton. I know that they got injuries everywhere, Craig. They got to find a way to get healthy, but I just think West Georgia is going in a little bit of a wrong direction. Davin Winder was supposed to play last week, and then they made the last second decision to hold him out. If he doesn't play, they got no shot here. Now, I think the one way they make it interesting is taking away the run game, putting a lot of this game on the quarterback and passing attack of Tarleton. And Craig, the thing that bothers me, I keep hearing people talk about Tarleton State, and they're like, "Oh, it's this high flying offense, and that's all they do." Like, the defense has not played terribly. Like, they'll have like maybe a bad half here, but they suffocated teams in the second half, and they're so deep. And also too, it's really not a high flying attack. It's been their rushing attack that's been the catalyst behind this big offensive year. I like Tarleton to roll on the ground. I think their defense causes a lot of problems for West Georgia's run game, which really struggled last week. So give me Tarleton, and I think they win this one pretty big.
I think Tarleton gets back some of their injured players. They probably rested them on the road against Utah Tech, knowing they have, big set of games coming up, including this one. So, yeah, I'll go with the Texans at home. All right, we talked to Ron Dickens earlier. Western Carolina is at the Citadel down in the Southern Conference. Western Carolina, if they get the win, they'll move into a first-place tie with Mercer. Do they get it done here?
Yeah, you give me Western Carolina. I'm just not going to pick against Teron Dickens right now. He's playing so good. And I will say this, though, the Citadel has been much improved again this year. I think they deserve a little bit of credit here, Craig. I think Maurice Drayton has done a really, really good job building this program up, and I've been really impressed with the Citadel, but Western Carolina is too much, even on the road. And I think Teron Dickens, you saw that defense click into place last week in the blowout against Furman. Give me Western Carolina to keep moving.
This is my flip-flop of the week because I think Citadel can get it done. I think it's an upset special that can happen. They've beaten, Chattanooga, Valdosta State's, not having quite the same year as usual, but that's a good win. And they prepped with a bye week. I'm not going to pick them only because I'm impressed with what Western Carolina did with their defense the last couple of weeks against Wofford and Furman. Only 28 points combined. I think Dickens is, going to stay hot. But boy, this is that one that I could see happening. But, yes, we only had the one ranked game this week. North Dakota at Southern Illinois. But, you get some of these receiving votes versus ranked teams. You get some of these meaningful conference games. It's not a bad week of games.
No, and again, we talked earlier this year. This is what makes the FCS so special. These really tight rivalry games, these potential upset specials. Like this is, and people talk about it all the time. This is why the essence of college football is still available at the FCS level. A lot of people are not happy with the way P4 FBS is trending in terms of the game. You can still get that old school feel of college football right here in the FCS, man. And I think you're seeing that with the viewership numbers. You're seeing that with the media interest increasing every year. And I think this is the weekend that kind of you'll see that, man. There's going to be a lot of games that I think are a lot more competitive, closer, and must-watch games than people are expecting, Craig.
Yeah, even with the rivalries, it's sort of a close-knit, community, FCS. You feel closer to the action. I think that's a good point as we get deeper into the race, that you just feel like you're a part of the action. So looking forward to week 8. It's been a lot of fun. We thank Graham Bell, our producer. We thank our viewers and and listeners here for each week on the podcast. Zach, I'm looking forward to next week because these weeks are total chaos. All right. Well, thank you again for joining, and we will see you next week on the FCS Edge.